that and figure it out. And I was like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So this, here, I'll drag this down and then I'll share my screen. This explanation, and we'll just start with the one that isn't a fraction because that's just slightly easier.
Yeah.
So they don't really explain how they get from step one to kind of step 1B to step two, right? So if we call step one kind of the original problem, I'm going to go ahead and write that out on my graph paper, and then we're just going to work on that as opposed to trying to look at the solution from Khan, and then we can come back and make sense of why Khan wrote that out. So if you don't have a fresh version of this written out, go ahead and just write the problem out again. So the weird thing here is the subtraction of negatives. And really, we don't like subtraction ever. Like we talked about in class, subtraction, quote unquote, doesn't exist, right? It's just the opposite of addition. So it exists. We made it exist. But when we start talking about subtract a negative value, that gets really weird. So let me try to make this problem make a little bit more sense. I have a debt of $3. And that's the beginning of my problem because it's a -3. I owe $3. I then get rid of, I might use my Sharpie to point, get rid of a debt of $4, which, so if you think about this like a bank account, if I have a debit card, I can either put money into my account or actually take money out of my account, and I can go below zero. Same with a credit card, but credit card, you don't really ever go above zero. You're pretty much always borrowing. So let's say this is a debit card account where I can put money on the card and swipe it and take money off of it. And I swiped it and I went $3 below zero. But then I got rid of $4 of debt. Well, that I would have to add $4 into the bank account to make that happen, to get rid of $4 of debt. I know we only have $3 of debt right now, but I'm going to go ahead and put 4 into the bank. I then go back to my car and I find $2 more and decide I'm going to get rid of $2 more of debt, even though that debt doesn't actually exist yet. Subtracting negative or subtracting debt is the same thing as adding positive. And then I look down on the ground and find $1 more and say, well, I'm just going to stick that $1 more in the bank account. So imagine that you just didn't know how much debt you actually had to start, and you were just trying to get rid of debt whenever you could. So what really happened to my bank account, if I go step by step, is first my -3 plus 4, I actually go up to a balance of +1, right? Because bad guy 3 or debt of 3, positive or good guy 4, the positive wins by 1. Then we still have the +2 and the +1 more, and we can probably, sorry, if I make my ones this way, I should do it to all of them. So then we can probably just go ahead and add all that together and say now my bank account is at a positive $4. And it's always better to have a positive balance than a negative.
Yeah.
So
That makes more sense.
yeah, because they
Yeah.
just don't explain.
Yeah. And then when I was first looking at it, it just had so many negative signs because I knew that some of them had to make a positive, but I wasn't sure which ones.
Yeah, so anytime, and you might want to make this note, like in your notes, when you have minus a negative right against each other, and we don't technically count the parentheses as separating things, it groups this negative with this 4, but it doesn't actually separate stuff. It just is a visual grouping technique. So that's why those became this addition, and these became this addition. Anytime we have minus and negative right up against each other. And technically, you don't have to write those parentheses. You might see the problem written out like this, where they put the negatives just a little bit higher up to show that it's not just the minus. So this is another way you might see it written, where the negatives are just a tiny bit elevated and there are no parentheses used.
Okay.
So then to talk about your fraction problem that you sent me, gonna change colors here. 3/2 plus a -6/5. So when we start fraction problems, what's the first thing that we want to look at?
Don't you have to get a common denominator?
Yeah, we need those common denominators. So we look at the denominator and say, well, it's a shame that they're not common. So then we start thinking, can one of them turn, like, really, can the smaller one turn into the bigger one? Can 2 turn into 5 easily? No, not really. So then we start thinking about multiples of our denominators. So somewhere we can either in our head think about the multiples or list them out if we want. So those were some multiples of 5 or of 2 and then multiples of 5. And we see that we have a common multiple at 10. Now this is where some kids are getting tripped up because their parents are showing them just little like tricks. And we need to make sure that we understand what we're doing here. The reason we want common denominators is like if you got pizzas delivered that one was just cut in half and the other pizza was cut in fifths. Now, this doesn't make sense because these fractions are improper right now, but just imagine with me, you get a pizza delivered that's cut in half, and you get another pizza delivered that's cut in fifths, and someone's like, you get one slice. Well, you're probably going to go for the half pizza, right? But
Yeah.
we should try to actually even out the slices, make them all the same sizes. So we are actually going to take the pizza that was cut in half and cut each of those halves into fifths, and the pizza that was cut into fifths, we'll take each of those slices and cut them in half again so that our pizzas end up having 10 slices. And when we do it in the denominator, we have to do it in the numerator,
Yeah.
so that we don't actually change the value of the fraction, we just change the numbers used to represent that value. So the point of doing it on top and bottom is to keep the value the same, but change the numbers we use. So once you have common denominator, I always encourage take the denominator and put it in your answer so you don't accidentally like add it together. Because a lot of people, and I've done this mistake plenty of times myself, you're just rolling through the top adding things together and you accidentally add the denominators. So I take that over first, then I look at the numerators. So with a 15 and a negative 12, what are we going to end up with over here?
3.
A 3. And that is our answer, 3/10. And it is not reducible because 3 can't be reduced, right? It's an odd number. Cool. So, do you have any other problems that you want to go over? I can make you host and you could share your screen if there's anything else.
I'm not sure.